Beau is Afraid was directed by Ari Aster, and this is his third feature film after Hereditary and Midsommar. And I'm gonna try and do something very different over here. I'm actually not gonna give you any details, because I went into this movie completely blind. I've done this now for every other Aster film. I try to know as little as possible before watching it because I feel like there is something to be garnered from that. At least with Midsommar I did this. Hereditary I had some notion, but then after seeing that, I knew every movie of his, I was gonna try and be as averse to the promotional material as much as possible. Which is why I'm pleased to report that I did not see one frame of Beau is Afraid until I was in the theater today. I didn't watch any trailers. I saw the poster, had no idea what the movie was about, and walked in completely blind. And I'm just gonna talk about my experience watching it. Originally, the film was called Disappointment Boulevard, but after watching it, I understand why they changed the title. Beau is Afraid is a film that is a sort of an existential horror film. It's not horror in the same sense that the first two movies he made were. Yeah, there's some moments which are genuinely very creepy and they're very, uneasy and queasy, but at the same time, it's a film that's basically chronicling through an entire story. And it does so in a very bizarre way that you might walk out thinking how exactly to talk about it. That's actually one of the other reasons I want to keep it as low-key as possible, because I don't really know how to approach Beau is Afraid. It's a tough film to start going into. I can give you the basic stuff that I did like about the film, but it's a hard one to gauge in terms of a number. I think the film is wonderfully crafted. Once again, Aster as a director just showcases why he is one of the better horror film directors that we have right now. Like I said, it's not typical horror in Beau is Afraid. You get a very existential story over here, but the way he's directed this thing, especially aspects of the first act of the film, are genuinely amazing. I mean, that's not to say that the other stuff isn't. There's some amazing stuff in the second and third acts, which are also really remarkably done. But when it comes to just bringing that visual storytelling to life, from its production design to the cinematography to just the amazing level of depth and in detail, which is in every single frame, is to be remarked upon. This is a film that I'm sure people are going to go back to over and over again, because there's so many cases where if you look in the background, you'll notice a detail which will be very striking, and you'll think to yourself, I wonder how that's going to factor into it. And on the second viewing, you might notice something that gives away something that'll happen later on, or something like that. It happened with Hereditary and Midsommar. There's a very likely scenario that it's going to happen with Beau is Afraid too. And Joaquin Phoenix, who is in the center of it all, is fantastic as usual. I mean, this is an actor who has basically done no wrong at this point. And once again, he continues to prove that he is one of the best in the business and the best to ever do it. He is a fantastic presence, and he's carrying this film in some really, really remarkable ways here. But not to be discounted are the supporting actors, all of whom do a really, really great job as well. Like a very unique turn from Nathan Lane in ways, and Amy Ryan is genuinely great too. You get some great stuff when it comes to some of those supporting performances. There's one I won't talk about, which I loved. It's something that I feel like is going to come up in some reviews, but since I didn't know anything about it, I would rather not tell you guys either. It's one of those, surprise things. Like when that actor showed up, I was like, oh, it's you. Okay. The film doesn't exactly take a while to get going by any means. It starts going from frame one. And I watched this in IMAX, which confused me at first because I thought, why this in IMAX? What is so special about this movie? And then it hit me while I was watching it. It's a very grand-scaled film. This film is massive. And there are certain sequences that look incredible on that massive screen. I don't know how many screenings are going to happen in IMAX, if it's just a very, very limited engagement. But I recommend, if you get a chance to see it in IMAX, take the IMAX trip. This is definitely a film that, deserves that huge canvas. And it succeeds over there in spades. I really loved the film when it came to all of those technical aspects, whether it be, its musical score, whether it be just the stuff that's constructed around in order to pull off some of those really amazing sequences. But really, it's also about telling a story. And Aster, once again, does a lot of visual talking. Like, a lot of times you will have characters basically just tell you what's going on. And there are moments in this film also which come around basically to tell you what the film is trying to do. And you'll get that, quick rundown of it. And you'll get something that eventually ties into something later, like foreshadowing. But at the end of the day, this is more visual than any of the other two films. In fact, even more so than I would say Midsommar. Because Midsommar takes about an hour and then you start to get your answers. In this case, it takes much longer than that. And then the film constantly pulls the rug out from underneath you in some ways, which can be divisive. I feel like there are going to be cases where people walk out of this film and they're going to hate it. It makes some very, polarizing decisions, to say the least, as things progress and you follow along Bo as you sort of see aspects of his life playing out from, as you may have been able to tell from the poster, and he's a kid, when he's, the way we see him in this film, and eventually as someone a little older, and how all of those things are constructed. It proved to be really, really fascinating, and it's a very interesting exodus that you go on. That being said, you're probably not listening to a word I'm saying if you didn't like this movie, because if you didn't, then nothing I'm going to say is going to change any of that. But it is a fascinating film that I feel like, at least in my personal opinion, I'm going to be thinking about for a long time. It's a very unique movie, and just once again proves that when it comes to making films like this, not only should there be more of this stuff, but I'm excited to see more of this stuff from Aster. I think he's a director who is very creative and very interesting, and I can only imagine what he's going to try end up doing next. Again, it's a film that uses horror in a very different way. It uses it in a very effective way, but it's not exactly the way that the other two movies used it. But make no mistake, when it comes to the more horrifying imagery that the film has to bestow upon you, the viewer, there are moments which are genuinely incredibly jarring. There's a couple of scenes that are very uncomfortable, but not exactly in the ways that you'd think. But surprisingly, the film is also very funny. There's a lot of moments where you will genuinely find yourself laughing along with some of the situations that are taking place. There's one scene in particular where the laughs will keep coming, and it's not just uneasy laughs. It's genuinely like, this is playing out like a situational comedy. This is genuinely like, bringing out that emotion. And it's not in a so bad it's good way. It's in a way that it's dark humor infused into it, which also goes along with the other films that Aster has made. Especially, you can see hints of that in the first half of Midsommar, even towards the later part as well. And there are points in this film. There's one scene in this movie that is all three things at once. It's both like, there's a gruesome aspect to it, there's an uncomfortable aspect to it, there's a funny aspect to it. All three, it's like a clash of all of those things, and you'll know when that scene happens because they've done it in such a way. It's so bizarre, and I don't even know. I can't even hint at it. Like, I would rather you guys just experience that for yourselves. I'm actually not gonna give a grade. I feel like I do this when I really don't know what exactly to say about a film, but make no mistake, I did really like what I'm seeing. The reason I'm not giving it a grade is because in this particular case, I just find it hard to give it a number. I just don't know if I can gauge it like that. I think this is a film that is going to have variations. Like, you're gonna go from certain numbers to certain numbers over time. I'm curious to what I'll think of it maybe a few months from now, or a year from now. Like, that I feel like is going to be the real test when it comes to Beau is Afraid. But I'm so curious to hear what everybody has to say about it, because it opens in theaters this week. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of thoughts on it, and it's going to be polarizing. There are, like I said, decisions that it makes that are very outlandish and bizarre. But then again, in a world where we're constantly talking about having some more unique stuff, more power to Ari Aster, And I feel like he's just getting started. Like, there are points of this where you'll think, okay, well, what do you do from here? It's like, what don't you do from here? Like, I know he's 3 movies in, but I think he's just begun. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Let me know if you guys did check out Beau is Afraid though, because it's out in theaters like this weekend. I know that, but it had its early screening, so I'm just curious if anyone did go and check it out. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below if you did. You guys are the best, and as always, if you like this, please do subscribe. I would really, really appreciate it. We're almost at 2,000, so definitely show some love, and I will see you guys at the movies.